Hi, I'm Jess, and today we're going to be talking about how to teach kids Scratch using a really cool program that can be easily scaled and adjusted for kids of all ages at all levels of understanding of Scratch. So we're going to be building a really cool little project, and I'm going to show you how it starts. So, with all kids, we begin with a clean project in Scratch, and it can either be on their desktop if you're providing the computers, or it can be in their own account in Scratch, or preferably if you want to be able to demo them at the end of the day and see them all together, you can use the Ladies Learning Code Scratch account to have all the kids log in and create their own projects. So I'm going to pretend that I'm teaching you, you are the kid, and I'm going to break down the project from start to finish. Here we go. So hello everybody. First off, I like to know, does anyone know what code means? What does it mean when we talk about coding or programming? Does anyone have any ideas? Great. Those are all great suggestions. The basic definition of coding is that coding is the way that we speak to computers to make them do what we want them to do. Coding is a language, code, it's a language that allows us to tell the computer some instructions to do stuff. So for example, in front of you, you'll see a program called Scratch. That little cat on the left-hand side on your screen is also named Scratch. And for us to make Scratch move, we have to use code to tell the computer how to make Scratch move. So I want everybody to look in the center of their screen and see where there's a bunch of blue blocks right in front. Now go ahead and explore these blocks a little bit. Go ahead and click on any of the blocks that you want to and watch what happens to the cat as you do that. Can anyone tell me what happens? Yeah, you're right. The cat will move, it'll turn, he will do whatever is said in each of these blocks. Whatever these blocks say, when we click on them, the cat will follow that instruction. These blocks are code. These blocks are a visual way for us to use code to tell our computers what to do. And today we're going to be working with Scratch and with these blocks to create this really cool game, and I want everyone to look up on the screen and check out my cool little game. So I have a little cat and he's moving around. Now, when you look at this cat, tell me what's different between my cat and your cat. What's he doing that's different than what yours is doing? Yes, he's changing colors, you're right. What else is he doing? Yeah, he's duplicating himself or creating copies of himself as he's walking around. And how do I get him to move? Can anyone see how I might be making him move with me? Yeah, you're right, I'm using the mouse. So those are the three things that we need to tell the cat to do. We want him to change color, we want him to move with the mouse, and we want him to replicate himself as he moves with the mouse. So those are the three instructions that we need to give the cat, and we're going to be using these blocks to get him to do those things. So first thing I want to do, since we're in the motion section of Scratch, now I haven't really talked about this yet, but every single section on top of the blocks where you see the words like motion and looks has a different set of blocks. And inside of these sections, we're going to find all the blocks that we need to make our cat do what we need him to do. But since we're all in the blue section of motion, let's start off by making our cat follow us around when we move the mouse. That seems like a good start. So can anyone find a block among these that could possibly make the cat move with the mouse or go towards the mouse? Yeah, you got it. 7 from the top. Go to mouse pointer. That seems like a really good idea. So I'm going to click on it, and right away I can see the cat goes right to the block, but he's actually going to my mouse pointer, which happens to be on top of the block. So I think this is going to work, so I'm going to go with this one. And to use a block in Scratch, what we need to do is click on it and drag it to the right hand side. So I'm going to have everyone do this with me. So we're going to click and drag our block to the right hand side. And you can put it anywhere on the right. This is simply our work area where we can put all of the blocks, all of our code that we're going to be using. So that's pretty cool. So once you've put it down anywhere on the right, click on it again and tell me what the cat does. Does he go to the mouse? Yeah, he tries to go. He goes as far as he can inside of his little square area. He gets as close as he can, but he's definitely at the same level as the mouse. He's trying to get there. So it seems like it's a really good start. But there's a couple of problems. First of all, if we look at my game, when does my game start? I click on this flag and automatically I don't have to click on any of my blocks. And usually when people play a game in Scratch, they're not going to actually see the code on the right. We want everyone to have a really fun experience and start on a big window like this. So they're not going to be able to click on any of the blocks to make the cat do anything. So we want to be able to get the cat to do things when we click on that green flag and get the game to start. That way nobody has to worry about the blocks. So we're going to go and find a block that's going to allow us to make the cat go to the mouse pointer when we click on that green flag. Now, as an aside, I will say, if you're teaching kids from grades 1 to 3, it might be hard for them to find their own blocks, and you may need to guide them along more and actually tell them what sections of the Scratch blocks they need to go into. But if they're older kids, like grades 4 to 6, they will find the blocks on their own, and you just need to give them a tip as to what we need to accomplish, and they'll very quickly find their blocks themselves by looking around. But if they're in grade 1 to 3, we got to give them more direction. So I'm going to go back into teaching mode. Now there's a really cool area of Scratch that is called the events section. So events is located right beside motion. So right next to that blue rectangle at the very top, I'm going to click on the brown one right to the right of that, right beside it. And you'll notice that we get a bunch of new blocks. They're brown blocks, and these are called events. And they allow us to tell the computer, to tell the cat to do a bunch of things when we click on the flag, for example, or when we press a key, or when we do a bunch of other things. And they're really, really handy. So somebody tell me which one they think we need to make our cat go to the mouse pointer when we click on the green flag. Yeah, you got it. It's our first one, the one with a big green flag on it. So I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to drag it to the right and watch what happens when I put my blocks. I'm going to bring it to the very top of my blue block, and as I put them close together, you'll notice that a white outline appears, and if I let go, they will snap together like magnets. When blocks go together, they will click like that. They'll stick together like that, and that means that they can work together. And we need to make sure that when we're using our blocks, we stick them to each other if we want them to work together like we do right now. So now we're telling the computer that when the green flag is clicked, we're going to go to the mouse pointer. So I want everybody to go ahead and test that out, click on that green flag. And I don't mean the green flag on the block, I mean the green flag that's right over top of the cat in our left-hand game window. So let's go ahead and click. Now what's happening here? Yeah, he tries to go to the green flag at the very top of the screen because our mouse happens to be there. But if we move away from the screen, does he follow us around like we want him to? No, he doesn't. And that's because computers are not really that smart. How many of you think they're really smart? I thought they were really smart too. But then I found out that they're only really just good at listening to us and doing what we tell them, but we're the smart ones. So now the computer is following exactly what we told it to do, which is for it to go to the mouse pointer one time only when we click the green flag. So I click the green flag, it goes to the mouse pointer, but it won't do it all of the time because I didn't tell it to do it all of the time. So I'm going to look for another block that's going to ensure that when I click the green flag, at all times as I move my mouse, the cat's going to follow me. So we're looking for a block that's going to let us repeat that action all of the time. So let's try and find one. And just as a tip, you might want to look inside of the control section. It's right under events where we are now. So let's go and click in there. Can anyone guess which one that is? Repeat 10. That's a really good idea, and I'm going to test that one out because I think you're onto something here. So let's try that one out. And notice that this little block is a little funnier than the other ones. It has like 2 different levels and an empty space in the center. And this is the kind of block that's going to hug another block. So I don't want to actually put it right below the blue one as we might think we need to do, like we did before. I want to put it right up against the brown one at the top so that it hugs my go-to mouse pointer. And I'm going to test it out, but I'm not sure if this is the block we need, so you don't all need to do this right now. I'm just going to test it out because I think it's a good suggestion. So I'm going to click on this, and it seems like it's not much different than what we had before, even though the computer is repeating that action of going to the mouse pointer 10 times, but it's doing it so quickly that we can't actually see any difference. So I'm going to remove this, and I think we need a different one. So we don't want the action to just repeat itself 10 times, because anytime that you move the mouse, you need that action to happen again. You need the cat to always follow us forever and ever. So what other block could we use? Yeah, you're right, the forever block. So let's go ahead and grab the forever block, and we're going to make it hug the blue bar just the same. So the forever block is really cool because it lets the computer repeat an action over and over and over again as long as we're playing the game. So what the computer will do is that when we click the green flag, it's going to go to the mouse pointer, and when it hits this little curly arrow at the bottom, the arrow says go back to the top and start again, do the action again. So let's go ahead and click the green flag again. Now you should be having a cat that follows around your mouse pointer. Does everyone have that? Yeah, isn't that cool? Amazing. Okay, so we have our mouse following us around. We're a third of the way there. What else do we need him to do? Change color, Yeah, and replicate himself. So let's go back and do one more action. Let's get him to change color. Now, just as a tip, we're gonna be changing the way the cat looks. So what section do you think we might find our next block in? Yeah, the look section. Good idea. So everybody go into the look section and someone tell me what block you think might change the color of our cat. That's a great idea. Let's try that one. Change color effect by 25. Let's do it. So I'm going to drag that block right into my forever block. I want it to happen all of the time. So that's why I'm going to put it inside of that forever block, right under go to mouse pointer. So all of the time, as long as I'm moving my mouse around, our cat's going to be changing colors, just like in the final example. The third thing we wanted him to do was to leave a copy of himself. Can anyone guess what that is? Aside. This is a really tricky block because it's not an intuitive block that most people would think of right off the top of their heads. If they're more advanced, they will test out different blocks. Like grade 6s are usually really good at this. They'll go into the different sections, they'll find the block that they think might be it, and they'll test it, and then they'll suggest the solution. But for little grades, it's better to lead them into the section and have them guess, or just write out tell them, because sometimes it's too hard for them to guess which one it is. So it's in the pen section and it's the stamp block. A lot of people, however, will guess under the control section the create a clone of myself. If someone suggests this, go ahead and try this one out. We want to test out what they suggest, even though they may be wrong, because then they can see why it's wrong and it deepens their learning. So if they do suggest the create clone of myself, I'm going to go right back into it. Great, thank you so much for a suggestion. Create clone of myself. I think that might be it. It seems like what we want him to do. So why don't we see what happens? Ooh, it seems like it's working. I think we got this. Let's keep playing with it. Oh, I really like this. It's really nice. Oh, but look at this. After a while, he stops making copies of himself. It's like the game ends suddenly. So maybe that's not the block that we want. It was an awesome suggestion though, and I really thought that would work. That's awesome. So let's try and look for another one. Now I'll give you a tip. There's another one that's gonna work inside of the pen section. Can anyone guess what it is? Go ahead and try it out if you want. Just put it in the forever loop. Yeah, you got it. It's the stamp block. So let's go ahead and everybody take the stamp block and put it inside of our forever block. And now, hey, he works. Isn't that cool? And does he stop working? Doesn't look like it. I think he's gonna keep going forever and ever and ever and ever, just like we want him to. So that's really awesome. Now, one thing that kind of bothers me is that after a while, it gets pretty boring because we fill the screen with cats and then, you know, nothing changes. It's just full of cats. So it would be really cool if we could clear the screen every time we press the green flag. Can anyone guess what block we're going to use to clear the screen? Clear. Yeah, you're right. It's right there. It's the first block that we have right now in the pen section. Now, do I want to clear the screen forever, or do I only want to clear it one time when I click on the green flag? You're right, I only want to click it one time. So you have to be careful when you drag it over again that you're not going to put it inside of forever. Over here, we're going to put it right under the block that says when the green flag is clicked. So that way, when we click the green flag, we'll get a white screen, and then all of our forever actions are going to start looping over and over and over again. There we go. Now take a look at my game again. This is pretty cool. And this is really awesome. And as an aside, I will say, if we get to this point with little kids, this may be far enough. They don't necessarily need to go further than this. However, if you have older kids, they may want to continue on and do a next step. So I'll show you what the next step is. So everybody take a look at the screen again. And look at what happens as I'm drawing and I press the space key. Ooh, isn't that cool? Yeah, it's pretty cool. So what's happening? Yeah, my cat's becoming all these different shapes. So how do we do that? Let's go ahead and go back to our own game and figure this out. So I'm going to introduce you to something really cool in Scratch called costumes. You'll notice that right at the very top above our blocks where it says scripts, right next to it there's a tab called costumes. And if you click there, you'll notice that there's two little cats on the left-hand side and a little section that says new costume. So I can go ahead and make a new costume for my cat, and I can do that in two different ways. The first way is to choose the costume from the library. You can do that by clicking on this little elf icon in the center, right there. So go ahead and click there. And you'll get a huge costume library. And from here, you can look up all sorts of really cool things. Like one of my favorite things is the unicorn in the fantasy section. I'm going to scroll down in the fantasy section. I'm going to pick my little unicorn. And it's really, really cool. Now that I have my unicorn here, it shows up right below the cats. You'll also see it show up in our window. And now I can make really cool replicating unicorns. And that's really cool. But one thing about the unicorn is that it's white. And white doesn't really change color because it's not like any regular color. It's actually a combination of all of them. So it's harder to really see the effect of the unicorn changing color. So the cool thing about the costume section is that we can make changes to the costumes by using the right-hand side icons here. So one of them is the paint can. And I can click on that paint can and choose a color. I'm going to say pink because it's my favorite. And I can then use the paint can to color my unicorn whatever color I want. And now I get rainbow unicorns. So there's all sorts of fun things that we can do. The second way of creating a new costume, not inside of the costume library, is to click on the paintbrush. And if you click on the paintbrush, you'll get a blank canvas and the same drawing icons on the left-hand side, and you can use it to make all sorts of cool different shapes. For example, one of my favorites is making a big solid circle and then making shapes with it. And it's kind of awesome. So you can play around with shapes, you can play around with letters. Like sometimes people really love putting their name in big letters, or writing funny things like crazy pants. And once they do that, they can now make funny words appear everywhere. So there's lots of different things that you can play around with. Once you want to get rid of a costume, you can click on it and press on the little X on the corner and get rid of it. Like maybe I don't want this one anymore. So play around with that, and I want everybody to make at least 2 new costumes so they can play around on the left-hand side. Okay, teacher's notes. Depending on how much time you have and the difficulty of the program and how skilled the kids or how little they are, this may be a good place to end. You can let them play around with it as long as they want. Kids really love choosing new costumes, drawing new costumes. So this is a good time to fill in your hour with a fun activity that can really get them going for a while. And it's really fun. So this could even be the place where they end. They don't even need to do the next step. But if they're done, and you still have a lot of time, especially if they're in grade 6 or they're a little bit older, you can continue and finish off the game. So back to it. All right, everybody. So you've created a couple of new costumes. So now what we want to do is go back into the script section. So it's right next to costumes at the very top. And what I want to do now is I want to loop through my costumes. So I want to change the costume every time I press the space key. So let's try and find a block that's going to let me do something when I press the space key. Now remember, we did something similar with when we click on the green flag. So you may want to look where that one was. Can anyone remember? Yeah, it was an event. So let's go back in there. And do you see one that's gonna let us do something when we press the space key? Yeah, it's a second one. Good job. And you'll notice that this is a really handy block, and you can set it up so that something happens when you press the space key, but you can also use other keys. You can use any key in the keyboard by pressing on the down arrow, the black little down arrow beside the word space. We're gonna keep it at space. And what I wanna do when I press the space key, oh, and also notice that I didn't try to connect it to anywhere here because I really can't. I can't really connect this new event to the other set of blocks that we were using. Because an event starts off an entire new set of blocks. You can't really connect it to an existing set like the one next to it. So we're starting off a new block, a new set of blocks. So I want to go through the costume. So I'm going to be changing the way my object looks. So let's go ahead and look inside of the look section. Can anyone guess which one I might have to use? Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Everyone loves to suggest the switch costume to block. And let's try. I'm going to go ahead and try it out. Switch costume 2. Now I'm going to switch the costume to the unicorn. But now what happens is that when I switch it, when I press the space bar, it's only going to switch to the one costume. It's not going to let me switch through all of them on a loop. So it's not that one, but that's a really good idea. Can you think of any other one? Yeah, the next costume one seems like a good idea. Let's try it out. And then we'll talk about what's happening here. So now it says, when I press the space key, go to the next costume. That worked. Ooh, we're back to cat. And now to unicorn. And now to circle. And so on and so on. So what's happening is that every time we press the space key, the computer looks inside our costume section and goes from one costume to the next costume, to the next costume, back up to the next, and so on. So it's going to do that every single time that we press the space key. So if you have more costumes, you'll have more things to switch through, which is really, really fun. And now you've finished the game, and it's really, really cool. And there's all sorts of things that you can do in Scratch, and I really encourage you all to go ahead and play around with Scratch. You can create your own account. It's a totally free software on the internet, and you can learn how to make all sorts of amazing games. Any game that you can think of, you can build with Scratch. Any game that you already love and play has probably been built in Scratch already, and you can look it up and play with it and remix it and learn from that project. So there's all sorts of possibilities with Scratch, and I encourage you all to keep playing. Now at this point, you could totally end the game. This is the original end of the game. However, in situations with really advanced kids, especially grade 6s, you might want to have an additional activity in your back pocket in case you need to fill more time. In that case, what I suggest is going into the sound section, which really kids just love, and they'll just be super happy to play around with. In the sound section, you can make them create a looping soundtrack to their game. So it's really cool, and you can simply go into the sound section, and you could go into the sounds, show them to go into the sounds tab. So actually I'll go back into teaching mode. So now that we have our game, it's doing what we want it to do. When we press the key, our sprite changes. When we press the green flag, it goes blank and we can start again. I want to show you guys how we can create a little cool soundtrack for our game. Now if we all go into the sound section, you'll notice there's a bunch of sound blocks that we can use to create music. And with a few of the blocks that we've already used, we can create some pretty cool things. So for example, we could play a drum beat or play any kind of other instrument. We can select a different instrument, trombone, pizzicato, electric guitar. There's lots of different things that we can do. And we can also record our own sounds and choose sounds from the sound library. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If we all click on the sound library on the right-hand corner, you'll notice that you can create a new sound by either recording one with your own voice, if you guys are good singers or you have any funny noises that you like to make, or you can pick one from the sound library. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the sound library. And there's lots of different ones. You can play them and figure out what they sound like. I really like this one called Drip Drop. It's kind of nice. So I'm going to select this Drip Drop block, and I'm going to press the OK button on the bottom. And now that I have it there, I'm going to go back into my scripts, and you'll notice that now it shows up in my drop down of possible sounds that I can play. So I'm going to create my own little soundtrack. And I'm going to need, first of all, I'm going to say, when do I want the soundtrack to start? Yeah, I want the soundtrack to start when the game begins. So I'm going to go ahead and select the when the green flag is clicked again. Where was that one? Yeah, you're right. It's under events. So everybody grab the when the green flag is clicked event. And then I want to take the sound block, and I can either choose play sound drip drop like this, or play sound drip drop until it's done. Let's try them all. Good. So that seems like it plays this whole sound clip one time until the sound clip is done. Let's see what the difference is with this one. It kind of does the same thing. But what doesn't happen is that it's not repeating over and over and over again like I want it to. If it's a soundtrack, we want it to play all the time. So how would we make it play forever? Yeah, you're right, the forever block. Let's go and find that block and add it to our new set of blocks. And again, we wanted to hug the purple play sound block. Let's try it again. Not hearing anything. So maybe that's not the block that we wanted. Let's go back and get rid of this sound block. And let's pick the one that says play sound drip drop until done. It looks like it's working now. Cool. So now I have both my music and my cool game. And I encourage you to go ahead. I'm going to give you a few minutes now. Play around with the sounds. Or instead of putting a sound in the forever loop, you could also play some notes or change the instrument. If you're musicians, you can even compose your own music with this. So go ahead and play around for a while. Okay, so that's a way that you can extend this project and fill an hour pretty easily, depending on the levels of expertise in the group and just how fast they pick things up. A few things to consider is that grade ones sometimes don't know how to read yet. They find the blocks difficult to work with for that reason, so you have to tell them what they say, and some of them will already know how to read so they can help the others, but it's good. I try to count from the top if we're going to use a block. So for example, if we're going to use the go to mouse pointer, someone might find it and then I'll say it's 7 from the top. Let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In case they don't know how to read. Another thing to remember is that some kids will find it difficult to drag the blocks from the left to the right. And to get them to stick together, or if they make a mistake and they want to remove one, it's weird with Scratch because you can't remove a middle block. You have to remove a bunch of them and then split them apart and then put them back in. So it gets a little tricky, and mentors are really good for helping out with that kind of situation. And overall, let the kids explore. If you find that they're really fast and they can get it on their own, let them have more time to do their own thing and explore the blocks and play around with them, because they'll come up with really awesome things and make the game even cooler than we have. Sometimes kids will add new sprites and they'll do all sorts of cool things that we haven't even considered in this version of the game. So enjoy, have fun, and I hope that this has been a helpful walkthrough of the Pogo on Scratch game. Have a good class.